You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos Stilianessis.
Welcome back, everybody, to Here for the Truth. This is episode 23, and we have a fucking incredible guest for you today. Someone who I have the utmost respect for, someone that I'm blessed to call a friend, and someone who has inspired me in introducing me to Germanic Healing Knowledge, German New Medicine, and it's just so awesome to have you here. And I just want to read your bio real quickly so our guests can have our viewers can have an idea of who you are and what you do. So this is Dr. Melissa Sell. She's a chiropractor and Germanic Healing Knowledge teacher. She helps people to understand their symptoms from the Germanic Healing Knowledge, German New Medicine perspective, guides them in learning to trust their bodies, and teaches them mental shifts for creating a deep sense of peace and well-being. I love all that. It's amazing. I just want to first say that the first half of this episode will be available to the public, and the second half will be available to our members on Patreon. So, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. You guys are awesome. And yeah, I'm excited to talk.
Yes. We have so many questions for you. But I think the first one to start off with is, what is GHK, GNM? What is it? What is Germanic Healing Knowledge? What is German New Medicine? I know those phrases are used interchangeably.
Yeah, so it is the revolution we've all been waiting for. It is the most ancient wisdom of our bodies that has always existed for forever. That was discovered by a German medical doctor in the early 80s, late 70s, following a personal tragedy that he experienced. And basically, he mapped out how the body functions and how the psyche and our perception of the stuff that goes on in our life is intimately connected with every single organ, with our brain, and how basically our bodies are designed to heal and to adapt to the shocking circumstances of life. And the stuff that we have been calling disease for the last several hundred years isn't a mistake of the body. So cancer isn't a mistake. When you have a sore throat, it's not a mistake. When you have a cough, it's not because of a microorganism. It is because your body has deliberately and intentionally adapted to your perception of your environment. And so it's very rich and deep and complicated because it's how our bodies function. And so yes, Germanic Healing Knowledge, German New Medicine. He originally called it New Medicine, then he called it Germanic New Medicine. And then towards the end of his life, Dr. Hammer began referring to it as Germanic Healing Knowledge to get away from the medicine title. And so that's why the names kind of interchangeably, but we'll be referring to it as GHK or GNM to refer to what is the 5 biological laws. And so these are the things that he discovered about how our bodies function. And so it's incredible wisdom that I think every single individual on the planet needs to know about.
It's super empowering knowledge. And I guess another question I have for you is, I feel like I've been someone who's kind of been in the personal, like the health and wellness, personal development realms, into a lot of different things. And it wasn't until I connected with you that I had heard about German New Medicine. And so I want to ask you, why is that? Why don't more people know GHK?
I have no idea. I mean, that's the same way I felt. It wasn't until 2017, the beginning of that year, that I stumbled across it randomly listening to a podcast. Someone mentioned it and I was like, what is that? I've never heard of this. And I've been around natural, holistic, all of chiropractic school, all of alternative health and healing and wellness and all of that. Not a whisper, not a word. Hadn't heard of this German medical doctor who developed testicular cancer after his son was shot and discovered this amazing stuff about the body. And so it is the best secret in wellness and health. And yeah, I'm just trying to do my part to share it with people because I really do think it is this mind-blowing, how does this exist and I don't not know about it type of information.
I mean, you've paid it forward because, you shared it with me. And now I'm doing my part and studying it. There's always so much to study, and I literally tell everyone I know about it. I'm like, everything we've learned about what health is and what disease is not true. You know, that there's this wisdom, there's this knowledge that has been around, which this is what blows my mind, is like he made these discoveries, like the 5 biological laws 40 years ago. And not surprisingly, he made these discoveries and was probably like, oh my God, I've discovered the Holy Grail. Let me go tell my colleagues. Let me tell the people I work with. And they're like, typical, like, no. We're not having any of this. You can't come and just like destroy the conventional paradigm. And you know what I mean? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? I don't want to go into your story, but can you talk a little bit about like why this has been around for 40 years and what happened with Dr. Hummer?
Well, the powers that be are not here for the truth. And so they, here Dr. Hummer is with his thesis, with this information, and they wouldn't even review it, because if they reviewed it and entered it into kind of the body of, we're reviewing this formally, they would have to look at the tenets, look at the thesis, look at what's being presented, and they didn't want to know. I believe I remember reading something where when they were asked, why aren't you reviewing this thesis? It's like, we don't want to know if this is true. And it has been independently verified by several different sources. The brain scans, confirmed by Siemens, which is, that is one of the most tangible physical proofs. I mean, everything else, it's so common sense. Like the people I work with and the people I talk to, they don't need to see a brain scan. They don't need, the objective scientific proof. They just know. And that's the thing that so resonates as truth with this wisdom. As soon as I read it and kind of started, my gears started turning about like, okay, what is this all about? It just resonated deep in my bones. And everybody that I've spoken to who learns GNM and understands and just sees a couple of their symptoms through the lens of this wisdom, they're like, this is how the body works. And it's clear as day, and it can't be argued against. And it is logical, and it's verifiable, and it's consistent. And that's the thing that makes this like biological laws. There are no exceptions. Like Dr. Hummer did extensive research, and he found again and again and again, there were not any exceptions. And so, I mean, really, when you look at what this information would mean for the pharmaceutical industry, for the cancer industry, for, all of modern medicine, it is desolation. It is complete upturn, like anything but emergency medicine and learning how to support the body through intense healing phases, which is the future of healthcare. It becomes completely obsolete, because a person who understands that their chronic psoriasis isn't, just a random inflammatory process that they need to take steroids for forever, when they understand, oh, this is because I've been separated from my partner, or my partner's overseas, or, this person has been taken away from me, or my dog died, or my child died. And it's like, oh, this makes sense. Sure, may some people still opt to just use the Band-Aid, the pharmaceutical Band-Aid, which is what all pharmaceuticals are, is just a Band-Aid, never gets to the source, never gets to the cause. And so it really does. It's threatening on every level to conventional modern medicine as we know it. So that's why people don't know about it. And that's why it hasn't ever, there aren't schools that talk about it. Why medical schools, they're not taught this, because it is not profitable for the pharmaceutical industries who fund the schools and, all of the research. It is, it's a boys' club. And they didn't want Dr. Hummer's research and information and the things he discovered.
Yeah, I read that he was imprisoned as well. I think, was it in France for, it was agitation against Orthodox medicine, I think was the crime, which I mean, it blows my mind. What?
No surprise with that one.
No, and his license was taken away, and I know anyways, I can only imagine the impact that would have on someone's life like that, to have these discoveries and then for them to fall on deaf ears. So
Melissa, your passion and your excitement is so contagious. Like, I'm just sitting here tingling as you're talking. It's actually super, super exciting. And I mean, as always, everything has its timing, and maybe the circumstances that we find ourselves in are the perfect, ripe and fertile ground for wisdom such as this to start presenting itself to a broader audience. My question to you is this: in the most basic terms possible through the GNM, GHK lens, what is the relationship between conflict and quote unquote disease?
Okay, so conflict, which is being confronted with something for which you are not prepared. So this is a conflict shock, also called the DHS, a Dirk-Hammer syndrome. Dirk-Hammer was Dr. Hammer's son, who started this whole process of him discovering this amazing wisdom. And so it's something in a moment that is isolating, that catches you off guard. So that's a conflict shock. And it's something that you weren't anticipating, you weren't prepared for. Dr. Hammer says it caught you on the wrong foot, completely unaware. And in that moment, you felt isolated, all alone. And so your body has pre-programmed within it biological special programs. And so these are adaptation programs. And so most people are familiar with fight or flight. You're driving down the highway, you see a cop car, your heart starts racing, your hands get sweaty. You go through this sympathetic process where you are heightened. But what Dr. Hammer discovered is that depending on your perception of that shock, and so your perception is built out of like the ancient wisdom in your body, also your own personal experiences, I think also your family experiences. So there's basically all these old memories. And so every single time that an ancestor of yours experienced something, adapted to it, and survived, that wisdom is programmed within kind of the deeper knowledge of all of your nervous system. And so your nervous system makes a split-second assessment of what tissues would best be adapted to help you to survive this shocking situation that you are in the midst of. And so immediately there is an impact in your brain. So your psyche is what perceives. So your psyche is your whole nervous system, everything within you that detects what's going on. Right now it's detecting the temperature of the room. It's detecting sounds. It's constantly in this signal detection mode. And then as soon as there's something that's potentially shocking, potentially something that you can't handle, that you're caught off guard, the body's at the ready to press the button. And so the button is in the brain. So the psyche perceives, the brain is activated. There's a ring-shaped formation in particular areas of the brain, depending on the organ that would best be adapted to help you survive the situation. So for the example of a death fright conflict, the impact is in the brainstem, and then your lung alveoli begin proliferating. So it's a whole biological program that takes place on 3 levels. So that's what the shock is. This is this moment. So it's not just stress. A lot of times people will, hear a little bit about GNM and say, oh, well, psychosomatic stress causes disease, of course, but it's more detailed and nuanced than that. It is the specific biological program that gets activated by how your nervous system, psyche perceives the particular event. And so that is the conflict shock, and that's how it relates to the organ. So depending on, again, the perception of the conflict, different areas in the brains. We've got the old brain, we've got the middle brain, we've got the new brain, and those each control different tissues. And so we get to work backwards. We can look at the tissue on our body that is exhibiting a symptom, and we can trace it back to there's an impact in your brain here, and this is the type of conflict shock that you experienced.
So depending on our perception of the conflict, that determines which organ proliferates those tissues. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So how does the healing take place once we observe what kind of conflict was initiated?
So a lot of times it's spontaneous. So you have the conflict, it's a very real, and this is, the first level of all of the GNM, GHK work is practical, because, ultimately we are organisms, we're animals, and we are in very real environments where there's a shocking something's running after you, you're being chased. And then, so that's the conflict. I'm in the conflict right now. I'm literally fighting, fleeing, fainting. I'm doing something to get out of this shocking situation. Hopefully whatever that is works. I faint because I'm so afraid, but now I'm in this play dead mode. And so the predator is no longer after me. It's gone. That's a natural resolution. And so the body has programmed within it. So if I built up additional lung alveoli during that death fright conflict, because I needed to get more oxygen in my system, the moment I'm out of that scary situation, the body starts breaking down those extra cells. If a different example, if it was a territorial fear conflict, which is how my psyche perceived the event, and there is widening of my bronchial mucosa, so I could get more air through my airway, there's tissue loss during the active conflict. And then when I resolve it and I'm back to safety, the body has to rebuild it. And so these are all, again, programmed in. There's nothing we need to do to heal. All we need to do is regain our safe environment, get out of the danger that we were previously in. And so that's where, practical resolution is always going to be the best, the fastest, the most effective, so that you can get back to a balance. But the problem comes in is with these big cerebral cortexes we have, and this ability to think and project and to think about the past and the future. And, we get caught up in our heads about our problems. And we also have a lot of tracks and triggers, which are things that there's a snapshot the moment we have a shock. And then when we encounter these smells or sounds or sights, our body says, oh, remember when this happened? And it reactivates the biological program. So there's a lot of layers to understanding, how do I get into the healing phase? How do I get out of conflict? How do I ensure that my nervous system, my psyche knows I'm safe, all is well? This problem can't happen again. That's something I recently learned from Helmut Pilhar, which was Dr. Hammer's guy that he had teach his seminars. One of the things in his lectures I heard him say is, when the conflict can't happen again, which is when it's fully put to bed. He says, the stone has dropped from my soul. And so that's what we're going for, is we're going for this stone that's in your soul, the shock that's in your psyche. What's it going to take for you to fully release it, let it go, make it so it can't happen to you again. And so sometimes, if your nervous system is so primed, it's so afraid, okay, well, that circumstance is over, but this thing could happen again. It keeps the conflict active. And so there's a lot of, self-knowledge and self-exploration that it's going to take to resolve something, especially that's been long-standing for a while.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, there's so much detail to GHK once you get into it, but once you understand the basics of it, I think it's super, super powerful. So from a GHK standpoint, once the conflict is resolved, so symptoms start presenting themselves. So in the modern medical way of looking at things, or even just culturally, is that when people have symptoms or disease, they think something's wrong with them, they're sick, when in actuality, that your body has initiated the healing phases, correct?
Correct. And that is one of the biggest reframes, because that's what people need, is when you present with a symptom, when you have swollen lymph nodes, when there's blood in the toilet, when you're itching, when something seems to be flaring up, when your head aches, that's when we say, oh no, something's wrong with me. When I start coughing, oh no, something's wrong with me. But that is simply, we are looking at the second half of a two-phase process. And it's the ignorance of phase A, of the conflict adaptation phase that we were in. When we just look just at the symptom, what do? We try to find a cause for it. We say, oh, it's the cancer cell. Oh, it's the bacteria. Oh, it's the virus. We swab something at the area that's symptomatic, and we look at it under a microscope and we say, aha, I found it. This is the thing. This is the thing that caused your problem. Let's eradicate the thing, eradicate the bacteria or the virus or the cancer. So you no longer have this uncomfortable symptom. But that is, and it's ignorance. It's ignorance of an entire process. It's out of context. When you look at just the symptom out of the entire context, you would think, oh my gosh, please take this cancer out of me. Get rid of this bacteria. It's causing this uncomfortable symptom within my body, and I want it gone. But when you zoom out and you understand that this is part of something bigger that's going on, these biological special programs, you start to say, oh my goodness, I'm coughing and it's uncomfortable, and I'm itching and it's uncomfortable. And, but I know that this indicates I've resolved my conflict, and my body is now healing. It's restoring tissue. It's breaking down tissue that's no longer necessary. A very vital process is happening here. And so you take care of yourself differently. And it's all about supporting your system, and in some cases, if it was an extreme conflict that went on for a really long time, there are certain conflicts that you don't want to fully resolve. This has to do with the heart program. Dr. Hammer discovered that if a person has a heart program running for 9 months, it will result in a deadly heart attack. but if it's less than 9 months, they can survive it. And so this is it's nature. Nature takes people out of the race in some situations. If you look at wolf packs and the way that it works, when there's an alpha wolf and then there's all the other wolves, and the second wolf, he operates in a different way. His brain functions differently. He has had a territorial loss conflict, and he's not to resolve that conflict, because if he resolves it, he can become alpha, and it messes up the whole pack order. And so, this is nature. This is how nature functions. And so Dr. Hammer, he observed nature in ways that nobody else has before. He saw things that have always existed. And so by understanding it and working within the framework, you can help people. So if a guy has had, heart pains, chest pains for 3 months, it's like, listen, we got to downgrade this as soon as possible. We don't want you to get to the 9-month mark. And so there are, what we do within healthcare is going to be so different when people are recognizing these biological laws and seeing, oh, the symptom, it indicates something. And if I can figure out what it's indicating, downgrade and resolve it, we can, potentially save your life.
So to take an example, someone could live an incredibly unhealthy lifestyle according to conventional terms, but never experience any conflict, have an entire life of peace, wellness, and balance. And regardless of, what they, I guess, consumed, their interactions, etc., they wouldn't develop heart problems because there was no conflict.
Yeah. Yes. And so, and it is, and this, we all have examples of this, someone just messaged me the other day of like a grandma who's like 102 years old and has never done anything special with her nutrition.
Yeah.
Disease-free, still kicking it at 102. Yet people who are health freaks who, eat certain ways and have, diets and fasting and do all this stuff, yet, die at 45 of a heart attack or of cancer or something like that. And so we all know that there are exceptions to the quote rules about healthy lifestyle. And if I just am healthy enough, and eat the right foods, I won't ever get sick. And this was why, GNM just, because I saw many examples of that, and it really hurt my brain, because I was like, I thought that I was teaching people how to prevent this from happening. But then someone who I looked up to and saw as like, this person's so healthy, would develop like a brain tumor or something crazy. And I'm like, how does this happen if they're doing everything right? What am I missing? And it was this.
And that was the thing with Dr. Hammer, is that he was a healthy person and ate well and took care of himself. And then his son, was accidentally killed. And 3 months later, he developed testicular cancer. And he was like, wait a minute, like what happened with my son has to have some correlation or relationship. And that kind of brought him down the rabbit hole of exploring all this, which I think is fascinating. Do you want to give another, I guess, example around that from a GHK perspective? Like what happened there with Dr. Hammer? So with the testicular cancer, that's a loss conflict affecting the testicles, and there is erosion. And so it's similar to the ovary within a woman. If there's a loss, a tragic loss conflict, there's erosion within the testicle or in the ovary. And the biological purpose is to enhance the testicle or enhance the ovary, so that once the conflict is resolved, so once you accept the loss, accept what's happened, the body starts building additional tissue. And so the whole purpose is to produce more testosterone or more estrogen, so you can become more male, so that you can make up for the loss that you suffered. Or the woman, she has enhanced estrogen, so she can attract a partner and have another child, because biologically it's the loss of a child, which typically impacts the person in that particular way, affecting either the testicles or the ovaries. And then the body has this program to enhance, and it's all about replacement. It's like, if you lost something, let's get you another one. That's the most biological. And, it's not very sentimental. It's like, yeah, if you lost your spouse, get a new spouse. If you lost your dog, get a new dog. That's like the very practical way of resolving a conflict. And so a lot of times, you may be able to do that. And if you can think just very practically and biologically, what's going to be the thing that helps me to resolve this? Obviously people
aren't, your children, when you lose them, that's a very tragic and very sad thing. And so it's hard to accept moving on from it or resolving it. But finding out a way to do that will allow you to, your body to begin restoring. But if then you think, oh my gosh, now I have a tumor. That's the thing about like cancer diagnosis. It's typically you had a horrible thing happen. You had a shock. You lost someone in a shocking way. And then it seems like life is against you. It's like insult to injury. It's like, oh my gosh, I had this terrible loss and now I have a cancer diagnosis. And so it's very easy to see how someone who doesn't understand why the cancer happens would just kind of think they're cursed by God. Is like, why does this, like one bad thing after another? But when you see it's connected and it's actually your body trying to help you with the loss, trying to help you make it through the shocking situation, you have more of a rapport with your body. Because I think one of the saddest things is people thinking their body has turned on them, thinking that their body is attacking them, autoimmune, cancer. It's like, why have you failed me, body? And it's so sad because your body has done nothing wrong. It has simply responded in its ancient way to your very real situation that you're dealing with. And so helping a person to kind of get back into rapport with their body, I find to be, it's such a joy for me to help them to see your body's it's not done anything to you or against you. It is programmed with life. It's programmed for survival. It wants you to survive and have offspring more than anything. Like that's all that it's designed for. It's not designed to attack you. It will not attack itself. You just have to figure out what messages you're sending. It's more of a communication error. It's like, I'm still experiencing this thing, not realizing that my experience and my sometimes even willingness to kind of go back into worries and fears and, worst case scenario thinking can keep a conflict alive. And so you being aware and saying, oh my goodness, no wonder I keep, thinking about this person and worrying about it and wondering how it could have gone differently. And, something I can do differently is to change that pattern, and that can help to put that conflict to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I came across this quote today, which everything you just spoken of reminded me of. It says, "I've never seen evidence that they," referring to our bodies, "contain any principle of mortality. And in recent years, the suspicion that we contain all the equipment needed for perpetual renewal, given the right circumstances, is seeming to be increasingly plausible." And that's by Ray Pete. How does that land for you?
Spot on, right on. That's actually, so I'm a chiropractor. And so in chiropractic school, the founders of chiropractic were very philosophically based. And there are all these tenets and principles in chiropractic. And one of them is innate forces do not work against themselves. It's like, it doesn't make any sense that the innate forces that built your body, that built your heart and built your lungs and built your digestive tract would ever at some point turn against itself. It doesn't make logical sense. And if you think about, the span of evolution and, it's like, how would we have made it here if there was something in our bodies designed to make us break down and die? How would we have made it? Same thing with microbes. How would we have made it to the year 2021 if our bodies could succumb to any random microbe? We wouldn't have made it. The fact that anybody survived any quote pandemic ever, the fact that we've made it to this point shows us that our bodies are adaptable and resilient and can withstand and survive all sorts of, toxic assaults and, crazy electromagnetic. We've made it. Look at us. Yeah. And so that quote is awesome because it is, our bodies know what to do. There isn't a principle of breakdown. That's actually like the fifth biological law. The quintessence, it's meaningfulness. It's that the body, there's nothing malignant or diseased in nature. There's nothing, you don't say that, there's no evil in nature. If the owl eats the mouse, that's not an evil act. That is, it's an act of nature. And so in our bodies, there's no evil, there's no malignancy, there's nothing, scary. And that is, you have to see how we've taken mythology and religion and how we've put it onto our biology that has nothing to do with that. Our biology is of nature. It is of growth and life. There's a life principle, an innate healing wisdom that operates this whole body, apparently, because I'm not thinking about beating my heart or digesting my lunch or, doing anything. I'm just here existing, and it's all taking care of itself. And so for me to tap into that, and that's what I love for people to learn about, to say, oh my goodness, I can tap into the wisdom that built my heart, to the wisdom that's operating all of these functions. That's all that there is. It's life principle functioning through us. And it's the idea of evil, the idea that my body is turned against me, or there's something wrong with me. That is the poison, is the idea of disease.
Like, this is the most empowering information that I've possibly ever heard, and to consider the possibility that this is the fact, right? It's paradigm shattering. Absolutely. But my whole body lights up and it resonates and it makes perfect sense. I mean, this is the most broadest holistic perspective if we're going to talk about what holistic is, yeah.
I echo everything you said, Joel. I mean, when I first came across this, I was just like, WTF, like, this is fucking insane. And then the more you read about it, the more you get into it, and then you start seeing it play out. Like I'll be watching something on TV now that I know some basics, and like some character in some show will be like having this thing, and then I'll tell Sophie, my wife, well, they're in a conflict active state right now, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like really cool to see. But even within myself, I mean, it is so empowering. It is so empowering. And I think that's why this knowledge is so important, is because let's say you lose your dog, or let's say, like someone tries to rob you, and then you're in that state, you're in the conflict active state for however long, and then there's resolution. And then let's say someone shows up for their yearly exam to their doctor, and that this is the thing that blows my mind, because like I have to go to my biannual exam just to get tested. And so depending on the timing that you show up to your doctor, if it happened to coincide, let's say like shortly after you resolve some conflict, and you don't know this information, the doctor is going to be like, okay, enter my office. I have some bad news for you. You have cancer, or whatever the case may be. So by not knowing this information, then not only did that thing happen in the past, like whether it was a loss of a family member, whether it was a loss of a pet, but then you get this bad news from the doctor. And then what does that then do? That's a whole new shock to the system, because you don't have this information. And so can you explain a little bit about that, like this kind of secondary conflict shock?
Absolutely. That's a diagnosis shock. And, that is us not knowing how our bodies function. And it is ultimate disempowerment to not know what your own body is doing, because you have to put yourself in the hands of someone else. And so there's like this power dynamic where, I don't know what's going on with my body. Oh, that's what the doctor went to school for. And so here you are in this vulnerable position, being told something is wrong with you. And those opinions tend to carry a lot of weight because of the society that we've been raised in, where people don't even hold it at arm's length and say, okay, let me get a second opinion. Let me see if this is really what's going on. They take it right to heart, and that shock of, am I going to die? What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I going to leave my kids? What's going to happen? I mean, your mind is just racing when you're given a cancer diagnosis or any kind of serious diagnosis. And it comes from you not knowing how your body works. And if you're equipped with this knowledge, even if you do kind of choose to enter that world, you at least know, you can at least hold it at bay and say, okay, this is what's going on from their perspective. They think this needs to be cut out, but I understand this is a normal adaptation process. And so you just treat it so much differently when I've actually spoken to some people who have gotten diagnoses after knowing about GNM. And so like they've watched videos and they were able to not freak out. They were able to say, okay, here's this lump. Here's what the doctor says is going on. I know, I have access to information that they don't. And that's good. That's true. So when you are kind of in this situation where you're like, I'm working with the doctor and the doctor's saying this, and it's like, you do have information that they don't have. And so you learning more and more and more about how your body works. And that's the thing, fear fades in the light of understanding. The more you understand about how your body functions, the less your fear is going to be. Because, and that's the thing, is you have to be able to talk yourself through it, because it's scary when your body does weird stuff. I get it. Like when a lymph node swells up, when something's going on and there's, it's scary, because it's like, oh, this is my body and what's wrong with me? And your mind may initially go there, but it's like, when you have this body of information, it's like, let me stay calm. Let me figure out what is going on here from the GNM perspective. And most of the time you can figure it out. You know why you have this terrible toothache. You know who you wanted to bite. You know why you have bloody diarrhea. You know what you couldn't process, you couldn't accept, what you've been angry about. And so that's why getting in tune with this is so amazing, because it's self-knowledge, it's self-wisdom. It's, ooh, I've been suppressing this. I haven't been acknowledging this. I haven't been working on it. I've just been, holding it in. And, by seeing how it's showing up in your body, it shows you, it gives you the roadmap of the personal growth work that would benefit you to do. Because if something keeps coming back and keeps coming back and you haven't exited the loop yet, there's more you need to learn about yourself. There's more you need to learn about your body and about how you are perceiving your environment, so that you can break the pattern, break the spell, get out of the loop, and allow your body to finish the biological program.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that so articulately.
Like you're hitting like self-knowledge, self-responsibility, and then we're bringing that into tools that we can use tangibly and we can equip ourselves with for our own health going forward, to be more responsible. Like, unbelievable. Where my mind goes, it's like immediately it's like, okay, so we've been raised in this malignant culture where we're constantly under fear, constantly under threat. The powers that be have, constant random conflicts occurring on the collective every now and then. You know what I mean? It's like, what do they know potentially about our innate intelligence, and how is the game being played from the other side? That's just where my mind's gone.
I mean, I would have no doubt that, they, whoever they are, we don't need to get into that conversation, but they understand our psychology better than we understand ourselves. They understand the workings of the human body. I'd be highly surprised if they were not aware of this information and knew this information to the degree that they do, and want to keep us in that state where we're constantly being shocked or traumatized, et cetera, et cetera.
Which also ties in pretty nicely with Reichian theory, right? In terms of whole body psyche and whole body intelligence. And I mean, we all know what happened to Wilhelm Reich in the same way that it seems as though, the same things were attempted on Dr. Harmer. So yeah, curious to say the least.
I think when you understand this certain truth that can have such a huge impact on waking up humanity and healing humanity, they don't allow that to come to the forefront. It just doesn't happen.
People aren't ready for it, as far as the personal responsibility thing, because it takes a lot of guts to look at yourself and to see, because a lot of people will hear it and say, oh, you're saying my cancer is my fault, and they just completely disregard it because they're not interested in like peeling back the layers. Not that it's your fault, as in you're to blame for it, as in you should feel bad about that, but it's my fault, it's my responsibility, it's coming from me, which means I can do something about it. Because a lot of people, they are in that victim mentality, and having someone there to give them medicine and to take care of them is kind of where they're at in their personal evolution, and they don't, they're not interested in a whole world of self-responsibility and seeing how it's coming from you and figuring it out. And so I think there's a market for it. And that's the thing, like the whole pharmaceutical companies, we can't just blame the pharmaceutical companies, because there's people who are more than willing to take a pill than do the inner work or do the physical, taking care of your physical vessel. It's easier to numb, it's easier to take a pill. And so, not everyone's ready for this level of what it would be like. I mean, imagining that future is beautiful. And I love that, all the like minds, and this crisis has been incredible for connecting people to this wisdom and to seeing, oh, this is what we've needed all along.
Yeah, I like what you said before too, because that master-slave dynamic, like there aren't any, like if there were no slaves or people who saw themselves at, then the master wouldn't appear, etc. So, there is that how do I say it? Just the relationship again between, there are people who want these drugs. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to like ask the questions or go on the internet and be like, someone just mentioned the 5 biological laws on the internet. I think I'm just going to put that in the search bar and see what comes up, and spend an hour of reading the 5 biological laws instead of like eating popcorn while I'm watching fucking reality television. You know what I mean? That's like priorities of individuals. Like, where are they putting their energy? It's like, here is this wisdom, this body of knowledge that has been around for 40 fucking years, that literally makes everything that we've learned from the day we were born obsolete, like you said, irrelevant. Like, that to me is like, holy fuck, like, give me more. I want to know more of this. But that's
not that
me.
There's anything wrong with popcorn.
No, it's not popcorn. Like, I as I was saying that, I just heard Sophie like be like, "How dare you demonize popcorn?"
It's a great snack.
She's like, she loves popcorn. I don't mind popcorn either, but you know what I mean. It's just like, it's like the fucking emoji, the popcorn emoji.
Yeah.
So
we prop up the industries that we blame, right? Like the collective is constantly propping up. You can't blame one or the other. But yeah, man. Crazy.
Real quick, I just want to bring up a personal example from my life, really small one. And then I want to get into something that we talk about often in this podcast, is with each individual that comes on, is like your rites of passage, like what brought you to where you are right now. But I want to just mention something quickly and see if it relates. I'm fortunate. I don't really, I have pretty good skin. I don't really deal with acne or whatever. But like a week ago, out of the blue, someone I haven't been in touch with for like 10 years, like, I don't even know, followed me on Instagram, sent me a message like, "Hey man, it's been a while. I just can't believe you've gone down this anti-vaccine path and like all these different things," and like said I was supporting the evil agenda and a few things. And like, it was someone actually that we both were fond of each other. We care about each other, but it's been 10 years maybe we've been in contact. And I definitely was in conflict active state. I was like, hey, how do I respond to this? What I had to go somewhere. So then that was still weighing in my mind. And it was like a day until I could finally like sit down to just send a response. And then I noticed after that, like the day after or that night, that like this big pimple showed up on the right side of my face. And so can you talk about that? Because I would think that was maybe like I felt like attacked, like an attack conflict. Would that be correct?
Yeah, maybe even like an intellectual attack.
Yes.
Like, I can't believe you've gone down this road, like judging you and like, you being sucked into something because of, your intellect brought you somewhere, and being attacked by this person. Absolutely. I mean, figuring the zit thing for me was one of my rites of passage with GNM, was because I thought it was food. I was convinced it was food, but that is such a good example of an attack, unexpected, out of nowhere. You weren't prepared for it. You weren't thinking about this person. It was just like boom in your inbox, and you mulled about it, for a period of time. And that whole period of time, your wonderful body was building a little shield in the deeper layer of your skin, as a protection against this intellectual attack. And then when you made peace with it, you resolved it, you sent the message, you said your piece to that person, the body broke down that extra tissue, and that there's the pussy thing we call a zit. It's already healed. By the time it appears, you've resolved the conflict. You probably weren't aware when it was active, but you probably didn't feel anything. I've gotten to the point where I can actually feel it when I'm in the active conflict. I feel like I can sense it. I know that it's like, oh, something's going on here. And that's just my trigger to change my tune, figure out, resolve the thing. If I'm feeling attacked or soiled, sometimes if the dogs lick my face, I'll get feeling soiled, but then I have to just kind of get out of that and say, oh, this is lovely doggy kisses, change my perception of it. And so, because Steve has the dogs lick his face all the time, and it doesn't bother him because he loves it. He enjoys it. I would have like a kind of a gross reaction to it. And so I would get a breakout from it. And so, yeah, that's such a perfect example.
Yeah. And it was so obvious being in the conflict active state, because I'd gotten it, but then Sophie and I, we were away last week and we had to go out for breakfast. And like, I wasn't present with her. When I woke up, I was hungry. I couldn't eat any food because I was like, my mind was going. I was trying to analyze it. How do I communicate? Like, it'd been a while because, I've been doing what I do and speaking out for a long time. No one really fucks with me. No one really just kind of says things one-on-one. So it was like a little abrupt, which was exactly what it was. So anyways, it was just fascinating to, having started learning about GNM, to just like then see it play out in real life was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I think the most important thing to note, which I really want our listeners to take note of also, is that it's the reaction to the conflict, right? It's the perception of the conflict. So like as you go through life and you experience and you become more comfortable and more aware of your nervous system, then that is you actually building the resilience to conflict, right? And that's something long term that obviously yields great benefit for everyone. I just came to mind when you mentioned how your partner with the dogs and the licking the face, like it wasn't the conflict, it was your decision, it was your body's reaction or your perception of it. Yeah.
Well, and I think this is why we're such advocates of shadow work, of healing your nervous system, of healing your trauma, because again, you're walking through life like, someone could just clap their hands next to you and you're like, all right, cool. But then someone else, it's just like, holy fucking shit. And like, be in conflict active state for like 3 hours, and then that could impact them, or whatever the case may be, or a relationship could end. And for one person, it could impact them in a really, 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 really tough way. And someone else, it would still impact them, maybe not in the same way, So it's like how you respond to things, how you reframe things, how you take things in is super important.
Yeah. One term which I like, which I think was actually coined by Laura Matsu, is anti-fragile, right? I think that's kind of the name of the game now.
That is, it's a book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Anti-Fragile.
Oh, wow.
And that's a big part of, the work that I teach people too. It's how do I be in the world and not be terrified of everything that could happen. I mean, anxiety, people use the term a lot, but I think it does mean different things to different people. But ultimately, it's like a fear of being out in the world, a fear of bad things happening. And it's because you're very fragile, because you believe that, whatever happens in the external world, it can impact me directly. And I could be hurt. And that, from an organismic perspective, if you can be hurt, if you feel small, if you feel vulnerable, you're like an animal, you're prey. And so you're afraid of predators and you're hiding from predators and you're trying to get away. And so your body is constantly in the state of fight or flight. We need to adapt because this is an unsafe world. And so becoming anti-fragile and growing in your confidence and your strength as an individual. So anything that helps you feel stronger, anything that helps you feel empowered. And that's why there's so many pathways to healing, because healing is anything that breaks you out of that state of feeling small and broken and vulnerable. Anything that makes you feel stronger and more confident and more capable and able and resistant. And, I'm able to handle things. And the whole anti-fragile concept is not only am I able, not only am I resilient, but the challenges and the struggles make me stronger. And so everything I've been through, all of my trauma, I'm not a victim of my trauma. My trauma has taught me, my trauma has given me deep wisdom because, resolution is evolution. Everything that you successfully experience, the shock, and you resolve it, your nervous system got stronger. Like that's wisdom you pass on to your descendants. That's, like the wisdom you gathered from your ancestors who survived shocking things. That's the cool thing about this work is you can look at your trauma and you could be crushed by it and depressed by it and upset and feel like a victim. And, in many senses, like there are people that have been victims of horrible things happening. But there are those that have chosen not to take on the identity of the victim and have become stronger and better and more resilient and a teacher of other people of how to overcome difficult external circumstances with kind of an internal resolve and an internal strength. And it's this go within, it's the Stoic wisdom. It's how do we become imperturbable to the vicissitudes of life because things change constantly. And if we can't adapt to that change, and if we are shocked by every little person coughing on the street or walking by us without a mask on, we are so vulnerable. And it's our responsibility as individuals to get strong. It's not our responsibility to make sure everybody's in their own plastic bubble so that we're all safe. It's get strong, that is, you getting strong is the solution to, these conflicts and these fears and this state of vulnerability.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think that's a great place to end the first half of this episode. This has been such an incredible, mind-blowing, paradigm-shattering dialogue already. And I'm so excited for the second part. I think let's get deeper into the effects of current events and how that relates to within the GHK wisdom paradigm. I'd love to hear more about your story as well. To our public audience, we're going to let you go here. Thank you so much for listening to episode 23 of Here for the Truth. If you'd like to keep listening, head over to our Patreon and subscribe, and we'd love for you to join our community over there. Yeah, all right. We'll see you on the other side for our members. Take care, guys. All right, to our members, welcome back to Here for the Truth, where we're going to continue this incredible conversation with Dr. Melissa Sell. Just one thing that you finished on the other side, which makes so much sense now, is that, and I think you've actually mentioned this before in one of your posts, is that entrepreneurs seem to be the healthiest people, right? And that's because they've built that resilience. They've mastered the ups and downs. They've gone through all the turmoil, and they've healed their nervous system, and they're able to grow and evolve because of that. Like, that just makes so much more sense to me now after having this conversation.
Totally. Yeah. That resilience, that self-reliance.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a mentality. And so much of this it's our personal philosophy, and entrepreneurs, people who depend on themselves for healthcare and for making their business happen. They have to, they've got to do inner work, because they are facing those demons every day. And it happens to be the same skills that helps an entrepreneur be successful are the same skills that is going to help you to resolve conflict, get through it more quickly. And I mean, obviously it's not to say that an entrepreneur can't have a conflict that goes on for a long time, but they tend to correlate that the skills that you develop being your own boss and running your own business are very, very helpful for, being more resilient and anti-fragile to the stuff that happens in life.
Yeah. All right, Yerasimos, where do you want to go with this next?
I want to know more of your story a little bit, but then at the same, so how did you, like, what were your rites of passage? Like, you went to chiropractic school, and then you heard about G&M, but tell us a little bit more about, like,
what were your major conflicts like?
Well, it's, it's funny because I didn't have any kind of like major healing transformation of my own. It was more that when I was 18, I started working at a chiropractic office, and I got turned on. I was like, oh, this is cool. The body can heal itself. You can take care of yourself. And so I was just so into the fact that you're not just helpless. I loved that, because the idea that you're just a sitting duck waiting for a lump, waiting for your genes to turn on you, waiting for, someone to cough on you and for you to get sick. It's such a disempowering, like the mainstream narrative, so disempowering. It's
just a matter of time. We're all going to die anyway. Like,
the one thing that I really appreciate from G&M and learning G&M, and even just being friends with you, is that I used to be like, I can't eat these foods, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. And like, I wouldn't say I stressed myself out over it. I was just very like, no, I don't fuck with that, for whatever reason. But I've just kind of like softened my relationship around certain things. And I'm just happier and healthier.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't eat white sugar for 8 years, like there are other things that I don't do and I'm cool with, but like, there's certain stuff, like I wouldn't fuck with gluten a lot of the times. Now I'm like, I'm going to fucking have some pizza. I'm going to eat some ice cream, just like, and then as I'm eating it, I'm like, this is nourishing me. I'm enjoying this. This is amazing. And I don't feel like, oh, I'm bloated right now. Oh, I have the sugar hangover, because I've been telling myself all night, like, I shouldn't have had the fucking ice cream. I shouldn't have had the ice cream. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm like, no, this is awesome. I'm living a dope life. I'm enjoying this with people I care about. And then I'm fine.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
I was vegan for 5 years, right? And towards the end of that journey, that's when I feel like I was the most unhealthiest, because there's no doubt there was a repression going on. You know what I mean? For sure. Then when I started relaxing around food again, actually my health problems dissipated and they healed, and there was a release, right? So just, again.
I think the greatest reframe around all of this is that your body has the innate intelligence to heal itself. And all these other things we talk about support the healing process, as opposed to, no, I started juicing every day and my cancer went away. You know what I mean? As opposed to potentially that supported you, or because you're the kind of person who said, hey, I'm not just going to go and just listen to my doctor and follow the standard protocols. I'm going to take responsibility for my health. Like, almost that more in essence is what helps support the healing process, as opposed to just like, oh, because I juiced beets and carrots 3 times a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of person takes their life and their health in their own hands and does certain things versus what are the actual particular things that you did?
Exactly. Yeah, that was big for me because that when I got into the world of chiropractic, everything was behavior oriented. Eat this, don't eat that, change these products, use this instead, do these exercises. And so it was very like a behavior lifestyle prescription that you needed to adhere to. And so that's what I was so passionate about and shoved down everybody's throat. And you must do this and you can't do this. And this is why sugar's bad. And this is why grains are bad. And this and it's like, and so I created there were all these rules that people had to follow and couldn't break. And if you break them, the punishment for sin is disease. And the punishment for eating the wrong thing is inflammation. And so that was my paradigm. And so I thought that I was doing like the best work in the world to put all of this on people, but I didn't realize the pressure and the intensity and the conflict that created within them when they did eat the ice cream. Like you said, they do have the thing because they're like, oh, I like this thing. I grew up eating this thing. I enjoy this, but then there's me in the back of their head saying sugar causes inflammation and that's going to, feed your cancer. And that's really bad. And when I, woke up to this, I was like, oh my gosh, that thing that I was doing was putting so much pressure on their behavior, not about the being. And it's all about the beingness. And that's why someone can follow to the letter the exact things that someone who healed from cancer did. Okay, I did the juicing and I did the vitamin C and I did the coffee enema and I did all the things. I did exactly what they did, but I got a different result. Like I didn't heal, or my thing didn't go away. And it was because it wasn't the thing, it was the being, it was the person and their state of consciousness, their resolved conflicts. Like if your conflicts are unresolved, you could eat the best diet, you could do all of the things, but your biological program is going to persist, or you're going to be in a hanging healing and it's going to keep reactivating until you get to the core. And that's why this work helps to make sense out of all of that. And yes, it's all about chilling out. It's all about like truly rest and digest, being at ease, like the nervous system, we're either in fight or flight, rest and digest, and everything that we can do to chill out, to let it be okay. Let yourself eat the foods that you enjoy. I get messages from people all the time who are like so thankful for this information because they're like, oh my gosh, I can eat things again. Like people who've been down to like 2 foods. I can only eat 2 foods. Everything else causes problems. And it's because you've had such an indigestible morsel. And then you've layered all of these tracks on top of it. And every time you have a flare up, it's like, I can't eat that food. I can't eat that food. And then every time you eat that food again, you have the expectation, oh, the last time I ate this, it caused problems with my digestion. And so you flag all of these foods and then they're off limits to you. And you realizing I created all of these rules. I'm the one who made it so this food is indigestible to me. And by changing the programming, resolving the original conflict, and then resolving these tracks, I can eat these foods again. And it's just like the best thing ever. It's so fun.
You bring up the term tracks. And so just as an example, would it be something like, let's say I'm a 6-year-old kid and I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then like something happens and like my mom slaps me across the face, or there's a big explosion outside, or whatever the case may be. So there's this conflict shock. And so my body associates something with that shock with then the thing that I was doing at the time. And so is that where like allergies play in as well? Or am I wrong?
Yep, that's exactly it. That's where allergies, intolerances come from. It's not the food. And everyone should kind of, they do intuitively get this after you explain it to them, because they ate that food for 20 years, they ate that food for 10 years and they never had a problem. And then one day, all of a sudden, you can't eat peanut butter, you can't eat pistachios, you can't have this food anymore. And your body just all of a sudden decided to have an allergic response to it? No. Like you said, the body takes a snapshot at the moment of that loud noise or that fight or that slap, and it uses it as a warning signal. So it's like, okay, this was in the system when this bad thing happened. And so if this gets in our system again, I mean, think out in nature. If you almost got eaten by, a mountain lion and you smell pine trees, it's like, it's very functional. It's like, oh, when I get around pine trees, there might be a mountain lion. Therefore, my body is going to preemptively, mount this biological adaptation so that I can get out of, so I can know. And so that's what's so cool about it. It's like, oh my gosh, my body knows. It knows that I had a shock when this thing was present, this sight, this smell, this sound, this food, this whatever, and now it's using it as a warning signal. And so if I can resolve and allow my body to know that it's safe, I'm safe, this food is safe, this smell is safe, this thing is safe. People have been able to resolve lifetime allergies, things that they couldn't eat for forever, just by noticing, recognizing, and setting the nervous system at peace, allowing it to not feel as though, oh, this is something we need to be worried about. And that's the cool thing, is you can use your conscious mind to reprogram the subconscious, to reprogram this deeper level biological reaction that's taking place.
Okay, so my whole life I've been allergic to prawns, right? But prawns only, not any other shellfish. It's strictly prawns. I can eat crabs till the cows come home, but I eat prawns. I've been to hospital 3 times for eating prawns. I'm supposed to carry an EpiPen. So you're telling me if I go into the city of eating prawns and with the confidence and the conscious mind that I'm safe, that the prawns are safe, that I may not have an allergic reaction.
Yeah, you might be able to. And that's the thing is, I don't suggest people just go ahead and like go eat the food now.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, disclaimer here. She's not saying to just go eat prawns.
It's definitely a gradual process of, like, can I look back? When was I eating this food? What was happening? Can I make that connection? Do I know, and a lot of times if you can't remember, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, what if I can't remember my conflict? One, I think just opening up to your everything is programmed in your brain. Like your body knows. There's a part of you that does know the exact conflict. And so, these things can be revealed to us in dreams, in realizations, in aha moments. And so kind of really getting in tune, asking yourself, subconscious mind, I would like to know, what was the conflict? And you might have like a flash, a vision, like some type of thing that helps you to know this is why I was, so if your throat swells up, well, what couldn't I swallow? If your lungs swell up, was it a territorial fear? So yes, what could I not swallow? When that's associated with this prawn, and do you know what it was, and can you reprogram your nervous system and try maybe small amounts of it while you're in that state of this is safe, this is nothing to react to. And every individual has to decide what's best for them. And that's with all of this work, you have to know yourself, understand your biological programs, and then can I do the work? Can I do I want to? Because sometimes it's easier just to avoid them than to go in and do the work. But if you want to, it's kind of a fun experiment.
Incredible.
Yeah, and this is a segue into something I want to ask you, is that the topic of vaccines. People will say, well, vaccine caused my peanut allergy, or the vaccines caused me to have an egg allergy. So from a GHK, GNM perspective, obviously it has to be more than just that, because then everyone would have egg allergies, or everyone that got that particular vaccine would have peanut allergies. So what is it that causes certain people or certain children, whatever, to have these reactions to these things that are being blamed on vaccines, but potentially they could play a role, of course. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yes, so we have to look at the individual, and that's the thing, is when we say blanket statements about this causes that in every single person, there's always exceptions. And so, we look at the individual, the child, what were they dealing with? What did they eat that day? What was the process of the vaccination procedure like? Were they being held down? Did they not want to have it? Were they, was their mom out of town for a couple of days prior to, going to the doctor? It's like there's so many variables and factors to take into consideration to figure out why one child developed a particular adaptation, an allergic response, a paralysis response, something that happened. Because the vaccine in and of itself, yes, there's chemicals and things in there that can cause damage to the nervous system, that can kind of objectively hurt the body. But again, not everybody is hurt in the same way. Not everybody experiences it in the same way. Therefore, we have to look at the individual, what they were going through, the whole context in which their particular reaction developed. So if their body took a snapshot at that moment of the vaccination, because there's eggs in vaccines. And so it's like an element that's in, like, egg albumin used to grow stuff on, you know, the body happens to take a snapshot of that, that could, yes, the vaccine created your egg allergy, but there's more to the story. There's your experience in the moment when the vaccine was delivered, or maybe you had the vaccine and it wasn't the vaccine, but it was in your system later that day when you did have a conflict with your mom or with your sibling or something like that.
All right. So then this is the loaded question that would probably get us banned off YouTube if this was to go on there. But so do viruses exist from a GHK perspective? Are there floating particles that are contagion that can cause us harm?
So Dr. Hammer said that viruses, if they exist, because there is, and if you look into the work of Dr. Stefan Lanka, who is a virologist, that the thing we're calling a virus is simply what the body does when it's been poisoned, when there has been. So you look at the tissue samples, and what they do is they starve it, they give it antibiotics, and then they look and they zoom in on these particles and say, aha, this is a virus. And it's like, no, that's the effect of doing certain things to a tissue sample. And the same thing happens when you do it to a quote healthy tissue sample. And so they take, you know, fluid from the lungs of someone who's, you know, allegedly sick with some type of virus, and they do stuff to that fluid. They put antibiotics on it, they starve it of nutrients, and then they look at it under a microscope and they say, this is the virus. This is the thing that is causing all of these problems. And then they take that and make, you know, chemical concoctions to give your body a little bit of it. So it mounts it. In all of it, it's smoke and mirrors. And when you look into the research in the papers, that this thing called a virus being a contagious element that can pass from person to person has not been proven. And what makes more sense, you know, from the GNM perspective, is that there are tissue changes happening at sites. So for example, COVID. What is COVID? COVID is nothing. COVID is, you know, look at the list of symptoms that they've associated with COVID. It's ridiculous. Every symptom is on there, basically. Loss of smell, and, you know, a headache and a cough and a this and a that. And I mean, all sorts of things have been added to this list, cold toes or, you know, whatever. And it's like, these are adaptations that people are experiencing in response to trauma, in response to conflict, respiratory things, like a cough, like a chest, you know, cough, and you've got a fever. That's kind of the classic symptoms. Territorial fear. And I was speaking with someone I did a podcast with not too long ago, and he told me about these other GNM people who kind of did a little bit of digging into the kind of specific nuance of, you know, quote COVID, because that's the thing about all the different biological conflicts, is that there's specific nuances, they're flavors of conflict, flavors of experiences. And so if a bunch of people experience the same sort of symptoms, they had the same sort of like nuanced experience. Like, you know, we've all had different, we've had a breakup. We say, oh, we had a breakup, but what was that breakup like? Not every breakup is the same. Not every shock is exactly the same. There's different little details. And one of the details that these people have identified with the territorial fear associated with the lungs, associated with the alleged COVID, is I don't know who the enemy is. And I was like, oh, that's actually, I can see that. Like I don't know who the enemy is. Basically being out and not knowing where danger is. You know, so that, think about that, like that territorial fear of I might be unsafe. I don't know for sure. You know, I don't know who is the enemy. I don't know who has it, who doesn't. I don't know who's been vaccinated, who's not, who's wearing a mask, you know, who's touched what. There's kind of this fear of, I don't know who the enemy is. And I was like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense, that would be kind of the major fear that people have who are, you know, under the spell of viruses cause disease. And they believe that a particle can get on you that could be sitting on a door, that could be anywhere. And you're just vulnerable, waiting for you to touch it and then to touch your own face. And then boom, you're done. And so
this gives a whole new meaning to the media is the virus. So from this perspective, they are literally broadcasting the symptoms.
Yep, they are. They're planting the seed of fear. Oh, it could happen here. Oh, if a person is this far and they cough, you know, it spreads out. It's all of this internal imagery that we have, and it's spell casting. I mean, I've said this about, like, back to the acne thing, that like a Neutrogena commercial like poisoned my brain, because I had the idea that, you know, bacteria gets down into my pores. And for a while, I thought acne would go away if I just scrubbed my face and rubbing alcohol on it. If I just kill all of the bacteria, then my skin will be perfect, right? No, my skin was absolutely horrible when I rubbing alcohol on it. But they planted an idea in my mind, and the idea was the problem. The idea was the disease. It was the thing that caused me dis-ease. It was the thing that caused me fear. And so, yes, when the media and everybody is feeding into, like, I can't listen to anything that legitimizes the viral model. I'm just like, no, I can't even listen to that podcast you sent me, because they're still buying into, and even people who use like, oh, the immune system, kills the virus if it's strong enough, if you just have enough nutrients. And that model totally changes within GNM, because we don't look at it as an immune system, because that still is that fighting model. What is there to be immune against? So there's still an enemy. And if I'm just strong enough, that's back to the whole lifestyle model. If I just don't eat the sugar, and if I do eat the greens, then my immune system will be strong and I will be resilient against the evil bugs. But that even still is looking at, I can be weakened, I can be in a state of weakness, and then the bugs take over. And that was my old paradigm, my old mindset. It was this punishment for sin kind of thing. I thought about, like, if I had a peanut butter cup with sugar in it, I had the idea that suppresses my immune system. And when my immune system is suppressed, that the strep bacteria in my throat, they then take over. So the bad bacteria takes over because I sinned, I did the bad thing, I ate the peanut butter cup, my immune system went down, and now the evil bacteria takes over. That goes away. That's not what happened. If I can't swallow conflict related to either the peanut butter cup or something else, my throat adapts. And that's what's happening, is there's an adaptation process. And then when I resolve the conflict, there's swelling in my throat. I can't swallow very well. I'm coughing. If they swabbed me, they might say, oh, you've got strep in your throat and that's causing the problem. But no, the strep, the bacteria is there as a helper. It's there as a healer. And so when you see how different this is, you get rid of the idea of the immune system, something that defends. It's simply a support system. The body, the bacteria that are there are supporting you. They're doing what they need to do. The whole idea of viruses are allegedly found in the ectodermal tissues. And so if there's anything there, it's simply a part of the process. If the viruses are there really, and we don't even know that they are, it's something serving a purpose, or it's a byproduct of the tissue adaptation that takes place in that particular germ layer. So that's kind of the story with viruses. And then again, there's not valid proof that a thing called a virus exists. And so we have to completely, put quotes around it every time we talk about it. Because if we do anything to legitimize the idea of a virus that causes a disease, we're playing in a world that, is not proven.
Yeah. And that's like, I've been moving more into that place where people will send me videos all the time of like some PhD or some MD, like speaking, like giving testimony to whatever. Hey, listen, I'm happy that there are people that are speaking out against the vaccine, et cetera, but they're still living within this world under this umbrella of germ theory. And I just can't entertain it anymore. Like my views and my beliefs are shifting around this. And it feels like the immune system is like the thing, like the rationalization to just explain away the fallacy of germ theory, because it doesn't impact everyone. So it's like, well, you have a stronger immune system. Oh no, your immune system is weaker. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like they go hand in hand, and it's like, no, that doesn't.
Like we have different size shields made out of different things. You know what I mean? But it's right. Like, what do you under this model? Like, what are you protecting yourself against? Right? If for there to be a protection mechanism, there has to be a threat. But if there's no threat other than a conflict, which the resolution of such you're completely in control of, then yeah, immune system goes out the window. It's like
and it's kind of ridiculous, because there'll be, let's say, a younger person who you would think has a stronger immune system, but is living with certain conflicts or living with fear, becomes symptomatic. And yet my 91-year-old dad, okay, who's been vaccinated once in his life and is super resilient, grew up super poor in Greece, and just like the life that he's lived, like blows my mind. I could tell stories. And like he flew to California from New Jersey, flew back to New Jersey, and then flew to Greece. And it's like, he didn't get the virus or the new variant. You know what I mean? It's like his immune system is probably not very strong, in the sense You know what I mean? He's dealt with health issues and things like that. So I just think it's silly, and I'm not partaking in anymore.
Okay, so through this lens, hypothetically, if someone had to get the vaccine, if they went into the doctor's office in a more calm state, more aware of their nervous system, more aware of this knowledge, etc., hypothetically and technically speaking, would someone that's in complete fear of the vaccine have a much different quote unquote reaction than the person who is actually aware of this? You know what I mean? From the perspective now of the vaccine being a threat.
That just, hey, I think it really depends on the individual, the context. Why am I doing this? And a lot of people have asked me, because the getting it seems to be the path of least resistance to just getting back to life as normal. And so a lot of people are doing it because they're like, oh, well, I just want to be able to travel. I just want to be able to work. Or I just want to be able to, whatever. And so it really depends on truly your deeper perception of it, because is it a violation of your integrity to do it? Does it go against some type of deeper value? Can you convince yourself this isn't a problem? I'm okay with this. I can transmute this. Well, yeah, sure. But it's like, why are you putting yourself in that position to begin with? And so I think that, like that is such an inner truth moment. It is, why am I doing this? Why would I put myself in the position to have to transmute something and to make it so this doesn't affect me? I really have to, look deeper at, why would I consent to this? Is it out of fear? Is it out of coercion? Is it out of, people pleasing, or, not wanting to have to change my lifestyle, or, to have to do something different? And so I think that there's a lot to that story. As like, how am I going to perceive this vaccine? You really don't know until you go through it. How like it's kind of that moment of like, what have I done? You could be, mentally, because that's the thing about biological programs too, and conflicts, is it's not a mental thing. Like your mind, your conscious mind can intervene and can help you tremendously, but ultimately it's a biological thing. It is like, it's your body. And if you can say, I'm totally fine with this, I'm going to be okay. But if in that moment, you're actually there, and there's the nurse, and here's the thing, and here's the needle, and it's going in, like, you can still have a conflict despite the fact that you thought that you were like, Superman going in there, and that, oh, this isn't going to affect me, I'm going to be totally fine. If your body felt threatened, if your psyche, if they're, looking at those layers, we don't necessarily have like conscious access to all of the layers of our subconscious and our biological programming. If you felt fear in that moment, if you felt, I'm making a mistake, I shouldn't have done this, at a deeper level, even though your mind's like, you're great, you're doing fine, the biology wins out.
Well, I mean, compromise is a massive internal conflict. So
the other thing I was thinking around that is, let's say, okay, let's rewind back last year, where people were like, oh my God, I guess it's still happening, but like, this virus is going to get me. Oh my God, I'm going to stay home. I'm in quarantine. I'm in lockdown. Like, I'm staying in. Wait, there's a vaccine. And so someone gets the vaccine, and the vaccine for them resolves their conflict. And then they start becoming symptomatic, showing symptoms. So it's like, I got the vaccine, but I still got COVID. Could that be a thing that's happening as well?
Oh, that's constantly happening. I think that like all of the people who got the vaccine, got their second, they're like, oh, sigh of relief. Oh, they're posting.
I'm immune.
Yeah. And then boom, they have COVID, but then they're so thankful they got the vaccine, because then it would be worse. It's totally conflict resolution. It's because they have put so much faith and confidence in this vial, that as soon as they get it, they resolve their territorial fear. Now they feel like they can, they're okay, they're safe. They've gotten their stamp seal of approval, and they go into a state of relaxation, and then their body repairs, and then they get the exact symptoms that they allegedly are protected from.
Yeah, well, until the third, fourth, and fifth booster, then they're repeating the same conflict, right?
So is this idea, like, because from what I hear is like, they haven't isolated COVID, whatever COVID is. So then what the fuck's a variant? Like, is this just all like wordplay and just more fear mongering, or is it just like people who are getting the vaccine and then and I'm not saying you have the answer to this, but just I'm curious your thoughts, but like getting the vaccine and then resolving the conflict and then getting more symptoms, or more people are getting the vaccine and then resolving the whole nation of people are getting it, thinking that they were going to die from COVID, and then they resolve their conflict, and then they started getting new symptoms or the same old symptoms, and then more and more people have it. It's like we have a variant, you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, it just feels like this weird cycle of just bullshit.
I mean, I don't know how people buy it. I mean, it's clearly story spinning, improvisation. All right, well, we got to keep the fear train moving. And this is, plausible. Oh, well, the vaccine does increase the variants, but the variants tend to be, less virulent, or they're less intense, or, and people just eat it right up. They're like, oh yeah. Oh, Delta. Oh, Delta's intense. You hear people talk about these things like they're real. And it isn't. It is all smoke and mirrors, and the emperor has no clothes. And we all have to talk about it and say, oh, well, I had COVID the first time, and so now I've got Delta. And it's a whammy. It's just like, oh, if you only paid attention to all of the things going on in your psyche for the last 6 months, last 18 months, what's been going on. And if you made those connections, you would see right through it. But I mean, who even knows what, worst case scenario with these vaccines and this, luciferase and all of the kind of crazy things that potentially are being injected into people that, what is this doing? What is it doing to people? We don't really know. We have no idea. It's not a traditional vaccine. It's not, like the ones from the past. And so I think it is. It's totally a mystery. It's totally people buying into it for social cred and for, loving science. And I mean, it's mind-boggling to me still. And
Hashtag I'm a better person than you. Hashtag I'm better than you. Hashtag I care about your grandma.
Yeah, and the virtue signaling is really what it's all about, and people like claiming to care about people. It's just wild, and it's groupthink, and it is I don't even know. I mean, I just think my people.
You're a Randian. You're a fan of Ayn Rand. What do you think that brilliant woman would be saying right now?
I mean, it's the groupthink, the collectivism, she saw it coming. I mean, she knew that people were going in this direction and not thinking for themselves, and did not look at their individual. That's the thing that she teaches, of the virtue of selfishness, and looking at, you as an individual, and understanding how, it's your own mind. It's the work of my own mind. I can't think through the mind of another. And that's the major problem that we have, is people, who are thinking using talking points and narratives, and they don't actually look at the logical consequence and conclusions of the things that they're believing. They're just like, she's got a great quote. It's really super long, but it's basically like, you're just this grab bag of slogans. And so you don't actually think, you don't actually understand. This is the problem with the My Body, My Choice people, is because they get the slogan, and they love the slogan, but they haven't extrapolated the slogan to what it actually means. That means full 100% bodily autonomy. There are no exceptions to that. They're not, oh, well, if it's contagious, then you don't have, it's everybody's body. No, it is not our body. It is my body. I am an individual. And I mean, even just the idea, and this is BJ Palmer, one of the founders of chiropractic, he's got this great little essay about health is individualistic. It is not communistic. There is not herd health. There is individual health, and that mindset that it's the herd is, oh, I wear my mask for you and you wear your mask for me. No, that's not how it works. I am an individual. You are an individual. We have individual health. And that's the thing about GNM that kind of just brings it all full circle, and it makes perfect sense. It's me. I can, walk through a valley of coughing COVID people and be unaffected. If I, within my own individual sphere, understand my health, I'm unperturbed, I'm not afraid, I'm unconflicted, I don't develop the same symptoms as you, because I am an individual, because I use my own mind and come to my own conclusions. And it's when you meld your mind with the herd, and that's what everyone's trying to do. It's like, no, you must meld your mind with the herd. You aren't an individual. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about your neighbor. It's about the, the immunocompromised. And so you don't do this for you do it for everybody. And it's like, that is pure evil. That is communism. That is, you not existing as an individual. You don't matter because we matter. And so, yeah, that's what she'd have to say about it, I think.
Oh yeah, it's collectivism is the most despicable thing that has ever played part in us. But this brings me to now the whole fear of the spike proteins, right? Oh, I fear the vaccinated now because of the spike proteins. I don't want to hang out with vaccinated people because of the spike proteins, and then it's another bag of worms.
It just feels like it's the same.
It's the same thing, just
fear,
flipped.
But it's
the same thing.
It's flipped on a different, group.
Just drink your pine needle tea. I mean, yeah, I don't buy any of it. I haven't seen a spike protein. I'm not going to consent to the idea of a spike protein. I'm not going to consent to the idea that, all these vaccinated people are spreading something to me. I will not consent to that idea. Therefore, it will not affect me, and it's like these invisible, and that's the thing, fear of the invisible is, that's classic kind of cult religion. This invisible thing, it's going to get you. And we've seen it under microscopes. And it's like, I'm not interested in things that you see under microscopes. I'm interested in things I see with my own eyes. It's like our bodies didn't come equipped with microscopes. Therefore, they must not be of utmost importance. It's like what's going on in my blood is none of my business. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about my tumor markers. I don't want to know about my, C-reactive protein. I'm not interested because that is, if my ancestors didn't know about it, why do I need to know about it? Yeah. Why? And if you're going to tell it to me, clearly it's to get me to do something. It's to get me to be afraid or to buy a product, And so I really think that these things that you can't verify with your own eyes, you can't make sense out of. It's got to be some kind of weird thing that happens in an electron microscope when we do this and that. And, it's like that I'm not interested in. I am interested in this whole, again, that anti-fragile. It's if I am susceptible to believing in every little invisible thing that could be out there that could hurt me, I'm going to live in fear. And I'm not willing to live in fear of invisible things that I can't prove, that somebody says is doing something to me. It's only if I consent to that idea and allow it as a spell to be cast over me, am I affected by it.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty incredible, the correlations between, the ancient control mechanisms of religion being the fear of the invisible and how that's translated to, the big pharma medical industrial complex, just in different terrain, but it's the same fucking thing, right? Just the evolution of tyranny.
And I love what you say around, I just do not consent to that idea, to that belief. And I totally resonate with it because I've been telling people for the last year, I'm like, throw me in a fucking COVID ward and let people fucking like lick me and spit on me and breathe on me. I'll be fine. Like, I'm not worried. Like, I don't roll like that. That's just not the way I live my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like from a, like a spiritual cosmic kind of quantum perspective, all is mind. Like that's one of the things that, really resonates so deeply with me. And I see it everywhere. It's like, it's all mind. And it's, what do I consent to? What am I believing in? And our biology, and it's looking back to nature, looking back to natural law, looking back to, the organization of the universe and, kind of our getting back to our roots and looking at all of the crap that we've just layered on over the years, these models and paradigms and dogmas and belief systems and fear and all of this stuff and stripping it all away. And it's like, I want to see what's really here. I want to see things through my own eyes. It's my own understanding, because my understanding of all this stuff isn't going to help anybody. It's helping me. And that's why, empowering people to come up with their own understanding. Like, what do you actually believe? Why do you think the things that you think? Why do you consent to the ideas that you consent to? If you aren't willing to think, and that's one of Ayn Rand's things too, is like, people aren't thinking. They don't think. They think that they're thinking, but they're regurgitating. They think that they understand something, but they're just repeating talking points. And so you can see that in people based on the ideas that they consent to that are not coherent. They do not make sense. But in their mind, they've kind of cobbled together all of this stuff. And it's like, oh, this is the way to be socially approved of. And that's how they live their life. And, I live my life by nature. I look at nature. I remember that all of this came to be without all of the medical interventions and all of the inventions that we have now, and kind of more simplistic. I actually, like viruses wouldn't be possible without computers. It's like, it's a computer model that sequences a virus. And so it's like, maybe the whole idea of the virus, it is a product of the computer. It's like artificial intelligence. It is, it's that
Into transhumanism.
Yeah, it's the AI taking over. It's like we have consented to this idea of this sequenced virus and all these computers and all these fancy scientists and all these, things that they've created. And it's like, oh, this is a product of your technology. It is. It's a technological problem, not a biological problem, because my biology clearly is doing fine, clearly has done a very good job up until this point. All of my ancestors have survived and here I am, and like, I don't need you. And that's the thing is getting away from the technology, because you don't need it, and when you come to rely on it, think about, are people even thinking like, what does that look like to be completely reliant on, pharmaceuticals every 6 months in order to survive in the world? Have you thought about the logical conclusion of what kind of world that is when every single person is dependent upon a pharmaceutical in order to even survive?
Yeah. Or what kind of life that you're going to be living under that paradigm. Like, that's the saddest thing I can possibly imagine, that you have to continually consent to this bullshit narrative in order to go about and live the life that you think you're meant to have. Like, it's ridiculous. And obviously we can see that what's being born out of this is a whole new breed of individuals at the same time. You know what I mean? And I fucking love it.
Didn't they just say in Israel that now people who are double vaccinated are considered unvaccinated if they don't get the booster?
Yeah, that's coming everywhere, bro.
It's like a whole nother level of the divide and conquer strategy. It's like, we got them on the first level, now we'll get them on the next level. We'll pit the triple vaxxers against the double vaxxers. Ha 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 ha.
Crazy. And that's why like this back to nature, I feel like so many people are like, get me some land, let me grow some food and learn how to live. And it is, when you look at people, and this is interesting, like studies they've done on kids that grow up around dogs, or people who grow up on farms, how they are, tend to be more resilient or have better immune systems, quote, immune systems, but it's because they're exposed to life, and then you think about kids who are grown, who live in these very sanitized homes, and they're germaphobes and they're afraid of yucky stuff, versus kids who are like shoveling horse poop and like putting fertilizer and manure on, on crops. It's like you have become, one with nature. You're like, oh, like poop and dirt and all this stuff that I get exposed to, I'm not grossed out by it. But people who, have been grown in these plastic bubbles from day one in a sanitized hospital, and you put antibiotic ointment in their eyeballs, like the moment they come out into the world, that's like one of my things is like, when you see pictures of like babies and they've got this shiny goo on their eyes, it's because they just drop this antibiotic goo into babies' eyes. And it's like just their protocol. And it's, and so that's why I'm so excited to listen to the, the podcast you guys just did, because I think that the whole birth process, how it's been ripped out of nature, people gave birth in barns, people gave birth on the prairie and in the dirt. And, now we have to have these, ultra sanitized rooms and people, operating rooms to give birth in. And it's just so apart from nature. And then the kids that are born into those environments, they are afraid of germs and bugs and things, and they're constantly sanitized, and the helicopter mom who can't, the child can't have anything on them. And so like just returning to nature, that's how you become resilient, because you say, oh, there's nothing to fear in this dirt or this, this stuff that's on me. I don't need to be conflicted about it. And so I think that it is in so many ways such a good thing, because some people they're like, I got to get out of the city. I'm going to get rid of my smartphone. I want to return to nature. And I think that is, a beautiful, beautiful solution, and a beautiful kind of coming full circle of like, technology is great because it allows us to do this, and we connect so many great people. And so using it instead of being used by it, I think is definitely where we're headed.
Yeah, 100%. This just brought me to another point as well, like the whole genetic, in my genetics, the genetic disease. It's not genetics, it's your parents' fear being passed on to you, right? It's their conflicts which weren't resolved, which are now your conflicts because their fear is your fear, because that's how they live their life and raised you.
Exactly. Like the genetics, it's the same as like the quote germs, because they are effects, not causes. And that's where everything gets confused, is when we look at something like a gene or a microbe and we give it causative power. We say the gene is what's caused this cancer. The virus or the bacteria is what's caused this infection, this sickness. And so we take an effect and we give it the power of the cause, when in fact it is merely an effect of something else. And so yes, the genetic things that are passed on through families, the genes change in response to what? I mean, the epigenetics, it's the trauma. It's what did the parents experience? What did they go through? I mean, they've seen this in people who have gone through famines and how that changes how a person, the quote genes that they pass on. But what is it? It's just cell memory. It's, oh, these people went through some shit. And so you need to have this adaptation at the ready because you might go through that same shit. Like that's what quote genetic disease is. It's adaptations made by organisms who lived in a certain environment. And so these adaptations conferred some survival benefit. And that's all you need to know, is this at some point helped one of my ancestors survive. And my job is to become aware of it and break the pattern if I'm able to. And so that's the cool thing, is it's not deterministic. Just because you have a gene doesn't mean, I mean, how tragic is that people literally cut off their body parts because they think they have some invisible gene that might cause some disease somewhere down the line. And so they literally remove their body parts.
Yeah. A lot of people have been doing that with mastectomies. They've just cutting off their breasts because of some specific gene that could lead to breast cancer one day. I mean, wow.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but one thing I do want to touch on is, do you have something to say? Go.
Well, there's just a few things I wanted to say, because just from a G&M standpoint, because you hear often, well, my child got sick and then I got sick and then my husband got sick. So what's that?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. I get that question all the time because people are like, they have very real felt experiences where, they were fine, but their husband was sick or their kid was sick, and then they got in the house and then everybody got it. And so that's the thing. More is going on than merely the transfer of particles. When your partner is sick, when your kid is sick, how do you feel about them being sick? What is your experience? And so that's how, like, when when my partner is sick, I'm concerned about him. I wish that he wasn't sick. I don't like to see him uncomfortable, and that you have to look at the energy transfer of what's happening. What got him sick in the first place? What was the conflict that he experienced that set off his tissue adaptation? And so that's why conflict in families, kids are picking up on what you're feeling. And so if you are in a dispute, like you got in a fight or with someone at the grocery store, and you experience the territorial fear, and then you tell everybody all about it, and it was like, oh, it was terrible. We are transferring so much energy and information and feelings, and we're all picking up on we mirror each other. And so I can pick up the same sort of energy that led to your conflict and have my own version of that conflict, or a different conflict. Because sometimes, one person has, like a chest cold, and then somebody else gets like the stomach flu. And it's like, okay, it's, and those variation in symptoms and the variation in the degree of the symptoms has to do with how the conflict hit that person versus how they hit the other person. Because then there's always, the one person in the family that doesn't get sick. And so it's like, well, how does that work? They were eating the same food, breathing the same air. They were experiencing the same kind of emotional environment, but it didn't impact them in the same way. And so that's why we always have to look at all of the individuals involved. How did they feel? What was going on with them? Because it's not just about particle transfer, because that's what people think, like with STDs, they think it's just particle transfer of it's like, but when you have a sexual experience with someone, it's not merely just the juices and the particles that are mingling. Like you're having a complex experience of that person and of yourself and of the act and the situation and all of your past history with, it's like, it's loaded. And so it's a loaded situation with a lot of complex experiences that could be shocking, catch you off guard, you're not prepared for. And so, so when a bunch of people get something, we have to look at what did those bunch of people experience? And so, families can experience conflicts, regions can experience conflicts. And so when we look at things like, pandemics, it's like, what was kind of a mutually felt experience? Was there a war? Did everybody have to get sent off to war? All your sons are overseas now. Was that a conflict? Were you afraid for their existence? Were they going to die? Were you afraid for the safety of your territory? Were you afraid of, invaders or bombings? Like what was going on that a lot of people experienced at the same time? Because once that conflict is over, when does the sigh of relief come? There's a sigh of relief. Oh, that thing that was a threat is no longer a threat. This thing that was a problem is no longer a problem. This family, like family gatherings that everybody was nervous about. Oh, the family gathering is over. And we've all relaxed. And it's like, oh, now everyone has diarrhea. It's like, okay, it was an indigestible morsel or it was a territorial fear. And so whenever a bunch of people develop symptoms, science and people want to say, oh, it was just the particle. The particle just must have spread everywhere. And it's like, well, what about the people? What about the people and their experiences and their reactions and their emotions? And that's what I'm interested in, is individual experience, because that's what tells the story of the symptom. The symptom is simply a physical reaction to the experience, the shock.
So the Spanish flu of 1918 happened post World War I, which an entire continent was experiencing a certain conflict or shock, and then it ended, and then etc. XYZ happened. Is that one element of it?
Totally.
A lot of people bring up vaccines too around the Spanish flu. So I don't know. I was just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's what we have to look at. We have to look at what was going on with the people. What could have been a mass resolution leading to a lot of people developing symptoms? The resolution of a war, this danger, this threat is no longer a threat. There's a sigh of relief. Now everybody starts coughing, and we think, oh, it's got to be, this germ that's going around. But no, we look at the situation. We look at the stuff that people in the region where the problem developed, what were they experiencing? And I mean, it makes so much sense. And you can't just look at, like, when you look at numbers, statistics just aren't interesting to me. Like, oh, all of these people, you have to look at individuals, because because there are people that didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when there's a pandemic, even when there's, a plague, what about the people that survived? That's what I'm interested in. Why are there people that made it through what was allegedly some big plague that affected so many people? Why did people live? Why did people survive? There's got to be something going on in those people that they weren't susceptible, or they didn't experience that same shock like everybody else did.
And would you say the more intense or the more extreme or more lengthy that this thing is going on, then what comes on the other side of it is going to be just as extreme? So like a 7-year war where millions of people are dying, you're getting a notice that your son, your child, your husband, your brother was murdered, died in war for however many years. Then once the war ends, it's like, what I mean? Like, it's okay. It's fascinating. So it's just a complete new way of looking at all of this.
Yep. Everything needs to be looked at through a different lens. And it's so cool because, you can look back at your whole life, look at every time, you got sick or you had pneumonia or had to go to the hospital or something happened to you. See if you can connect the dots, because that's when it becomes real for you. That's when it goes from this idea that you heard about on a podcast, like these crazy people talking about, to, okay. You bring it in, you look at, you see the acne through the lens, you see the things that you've experienced, your digestive troubles, your skin issues, your teeth problems, your vision problems. Then you look at, oh my gosh, this is what was going on. This is what I was losing sleep about. This is what I was preoccupied with. This is what was on my mind constantly 24/7, for 3 weeks. And then boom, there was my resolution. And when you can map it out for yourself, that's when it becomes, something that isn't just an idea. It's a deep inner knowing. And the better that you can get at recognizing when you're conflicted, when your hands go cold, when you're not eating, when you're not sleeping, that's how you get to know your body. That's say, I'm in a conflict. There's something going on that's unresolved. I want to resolve it as quickly as possible. And when that becomes your lifestyle, when you are constantly just developing greater and greater self-awareness, you know what triggers you, you know what creates a state of dis-ease, which is a state of adaptation. This is conflict activity. And so this is my body's either building up extra tissue, eroding tissue, or losing function. There's 3 things that could be happening on the tissue level. And it's like, I want that to go on as briefly as possible, because the longer it goes on, the longer and the more intense it is, the more tissue adaptation. Once you resolve it, you're going to have to go through an equivalent repair phase. So if you were conflict active for 3 weeks, you're going to be under the weather. This would be, I'm under the weather. You are going to be symptomatic. That means your body's going to be vagotonic. You're going to be exhausted and fatigued and, symptoms, coughing, headache. There's going to be symptoms. And so if you understand that and you can reframe it and say, I know that this is, because people have like an inner time frame. If this goes on for another day, I'm going to the doctor. This goes on for another day, I'm going to the doctor. And it's like, if you understand though, oh, I was in the conflict for 3 weeks. I know I'm in it. I'm in this healing phase for 3 weeks. And so you have the ability to be your own doctor, and yes, are there times when getting medical support can be helpful during a healing phase? Yeah, but you want to know and use it wisely instead of using it rampantly. And, let's just take an antibiotic and kill the bacteria or take a steroid and decrease the inflammation. And it's like, oh, am I cutting my healing short? Am I not learning and going through this whole process and trusting my body? And so that's where, it does it. It allows you to get to know your biology on a deep level, and it'll change the way that you operate in your world.
Yeah. Melissa, this has been the most empowering, exciting, mind-blowing, paradigm-shattering conversation that I've had the pleasure to be part of, and I'm extremely grateful that you shared your time with us. And I mean, I know our listeners are going to be super grateful to have met you, and I'm so glad that we were able to introduce you to them as well, because most people that listen to this podcast, they're on the path of self-responsibility. And so to have this information, which just brings that to a whole nother new level when it comes to your health and your well-being, it's fascinating, and it's crazy how you go through life and there's just always something lurking on the other side, which will just fucking blow it out of the water again, it's
I love
awesome.
it.
Yeah,
I love it. Melissa, you're fucking incredible. You're a gem in this on this planet, and I'm just so grateful to know you and have become friends with you. You're a blessing, and so thank you from the bottom of my heart for G&M. For me, I would have never, maybe I would someday, but just to learn it when I did is just through you is amazing. It's such a gift. So speaking of it being a gift for me, how can people learn more? How can they get in touch with you? What information would you like to share?
Yeah, Instagram, Telegram, YouTube, my website, Dr. Melissa Sell, everywhere, Dr. Melissa Sell, is where you can find me. And I highly recommend go to the YouTube channel, because, that's typically, I want you to learn as much as possible about this. I want you to see the biological laws all laid out, and so that you can start kind of getting the wheels turning. And then if you've got symptoms or questions, or, I work with people one-on-one to kind of explore your personal history, what's gone on, what do you get stuck on, what these ongoing issues that you're having, what can you do to get out of the pattern? And so that's what we talk about. When I do one-on-one work with people, it is let's help you to see what you need to see, so you can break the cycle of conflict, of relapses, so that you can downgrade and allow yourself to access the deep wisdom and the healing in your body that has always been yours, will always be yours. And it's like there's just something going on outside of your awareness. And so my work really is all about greater awareness. And so reach out, connect with me. I'd love to answer your questions and help you guys in any way I can.
Yep, let's drop the mic right there. Guys, thank you so much for listening to Here for the Truth. Such a pleasure to share this with you all. If you enjoy this podcast, please tell your friends about it. Please share this, because this is something that, you know, I feel like so many people will benefit from. So yeah, we'll see you all next time. Melissa, thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean.